Welcome to the earthvox podcast. The earthvox podcast. earthvox podcast.
Let's go. We're back. It's the earthvox podcast, baby. Thank you for joining us. We're streaming live on YouTube and X and Twitch and eventually Rumble. But as I was just saying off mic, Rumble's still a little bit difficult. And I think
I hear that. I hear that from a lot of streamers.
I feel like part of that is a little bit resistance to like the competition. Like we always want to have, we only want to have two choices. Like I was just thinking about, oh damn, I don't remember the last thing that I was, but it's always like, there's the big two. Like it's,
Twitch and YouTube,
PlayStation and Xbox, Apple and Mac, Samsung and LG, which kind of brings me into the first topic that I wanted to talk about, because I've talked about it a few times on the podcast over the years, because I thought it was really interesting when I discovered, as I was shopping for a new washer and dryer, I learned about like the review wars. And this just came up to me recently because I used to talk about coffee all the time on the show because it was done in the morning. Now here we are on Friday night, which I was a little bit apprehensive about. But so far, as long as I crush an energy drink, it's pretty fun. It's pretty good. You know, I like it. As long as I can fend off the yawns, that's what's up. But I like to do French press. And the like the first, I don't know, baker's dozen French presses that we got were glass and broke. So we started getting the, I think they're called Mueller stainless steel, all stainless steel. Well, I don't know about the inner bits, but it's all stainless steel, unbreakable. And they're great, but they're kind of small. I think they're only 22 ounces or 24 ounces or something. So we actually had two of them to get us through the morning. And then my wife bought a Stanley. And you remember Stanley came out with those with their cups. It was the Stanley Cup, and it was all the rage for. Wasn't that a weird moment in culture?
I have like 8 of them in my, not mine, my wife's.
Right. Yeah, my I have 2 cupboards overflowing with like regular ceramic coffee mugs, you know, with the handle, and then also to-go cups, you know, the dual walled insulated with the sliding, you know, Yeti Stanley. Yeah. Whatever. Anyway, we got the Stanley French press because it was twice the size and it was a good deal. But I regret to inform the audience, it is not very good. And I thought about leaving a negative review. And then I thought, what would be the ramifications of leaving a negative review about this coffee pot? And then I started thinking, well, maybe they'll hit me up and say, hey, we're sorry. If you take down your negative review, we'll refund the price or we'll give you another one or something. And I started going down this thought path. And then I thought, wait a minute, no, that won't do, because I need people to know the truth. This is not a good, I mean, it's not as good. It's not that it's not good. It's just not as good. And the problem is that it lets a lot of grounds, a lot more of the grounds and the sort of grimy, sandy sort of coffee residue into the main reservoir. It gets into your cup, and then the last cup of coffee is really kind of like, oh my God, what is this? And then that got me to thinking about the review wars that exist. And then furthermore, how I just looked it up yesterday, like 50% of the traffic on the internet is bots. And I thought it's just another element of fake news. You get on and read reviews and you don't know who's a bot. Like Amazon started doing the verified purchase thing, where you're supposed to be able to trust that this person actually bought the thing and is giving you honest feedback. But then you read further down, especially I noticed with like Airbnb and Verbo, like vacation rentals and stuff. You start reading through the reviews and you get a certain, a few pages down in the reviews and you realize, oh, this renter is offering people a 25% discount on their next stay if they leave good reviews about the place. And I don't know, it made me wonder like what your experience is coming from your line of work, or, with your previous company, a very competitive sort, because I go on eBay.
Yeah.
I try to shop on eBay because I don't like Amazon for all of the reasons you may guess. And I see, like, I bought a cooling fan dock for my PS5 because over the summer it was getting hot and just shutting off. And I thought, oh, no. So I bought one, and I immediately noticed I'm scrolling through a bunch of listings of the same damn thing with slightly different descriptions, maybe slightly varying pictures, but it's all the same thing. And I'm thinking it's got to all be from the same seller, and it was trash. And I tried to do I pulled it all apart. I wish I had the picture to show because I pulled it all apart, got some some spray lubricant to try to, because it just suddenly one day got really loud. And I sprayed the lubricant in there and tried to get it working again. Nothing would fix it. So I went to do the return and they were like, we need you to send us a picture of what's going on. So I just took a picture of what I had all pulled apart with the fan exposed, and they just refunded my money and didn't even ask for me to return the thing, which, I mean, that immediately tells me that they knew
that
what
it was
they
a piece
sold
of shit.
was shit. And they're like, okay, oh, you caught us. Here you go. Here's your money back.
Yeah. So to answer your question about Amazon reviews and things of that nature, there was one item in specific that we had released for the Xbox One, and then concurrently released for the PS5. It was remember the Sega Genesis, because it was 6 buttons and had the floating D-pad. It wasn't like a regular crosshatch. It was like a circular disc that you could roll your thumb around on.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so the item was called the Fighting Commander Octa. We called it the Octa because there was a analog stick there with an octagonal gate. So that's why it's called Octa. But the number one complaint was about the D-pad. And, I owned one. Like, I think I still own one. I think it's like in my living room right now. Yeah, that one. The PS5 and the Xbox one. I have the Xbox one. So I have I had bought a few with my own money and sent them to players that I liked, that we had, met on Twitch and everything else. And the feedback was all good. But then you start reading all the Amazon reviews. I think for the first 6 months of that controller being out, the reviews were like 2.5. And I read through a whole bunch of them. And a lot of them were like, the D-pad sucks, the D-pad sucks, the D-pad sucks, the D-pad sucks, the D-pad sucks. So when it comes to reviews, I think it's actually the good ones you have to be wary about versus the bad ones. Why I say this is because, if it's like if you watch pro wrestling, you remember, like, I remember when Hulk Hogan went from like, I'm a real American to, becoming the bad guy and becoming Hollywood Hulk Hogan. And I'm like, I hate this guy. So I think the human condition makes you resonate towards the hate. And to bring that back into the review space, like if you look at something and, if let's say, for example, it's like, 40%, a high percent of 5s, and then like the 4s, the 3s, and the 1s. When you look at a review, I actually filter to look for 4, 3, and 1. Because then you can get an aggregate of what's real. Because I think us as consumers, we the Karens, the Kens, the people who want to like piss and moan, you get that way more often than you get like, oh man, that was a great meal, or oh man, this was, the service here was wonderful, everything else. For me myself, like I used to work retail. I was like a waiter for 6 months. Like I've done a lot. If you ever see like my full resume, you're like, what, how, why? Because there's nothing connects. But like you got to give credit where credit's due. And I think when something is good, generally it's good to look at the reviews, but because of those bots, because of everything else, my own philosophy, look at 4, 3, and 1. Because no one ever is going to rate something a 2. Like, that's stupid.
Yeah.
Like a 3 is like, oh, it's all right. It does the job, but like there's some problems. And like a 4 is like, oh yeah, it was good except for con. And they're like solid. And generally you'll get an aggregate of what the median most common like bad thing is about the thing.
Well, I noticed too, a lot of the times when I read the ones, because I do that's immediately where I go to the negative reviews. I want to see like what's the worst, if there's anything in common with the one. And what I notice the most is people complaining about it being damaged during shipping.
Oh yeah, that's common. That's
Like,
common.
what?
You skip that. I skipped those obviously, but that is
Like, give me a break. You're gonna leave the product a 1 star because Amazon damaged it when they were bringing it to your front door? Give me a break.
Yeah. I can understand it with like certain like so like in my old line of work, like when you buy an arcade stick, some people save the boxes. Like it's a mess. I am not moving my camera, but I have a few like fighting stick boxes that I don't think they're collectible, but they have some sort of like meaning to me. Like I have a shoebox, like a DC shoebox. I don't know why. I just like DCs. That was like a great brand that I supported in my early 20s and now. And that's the box. I don't know. The box probably has like pictures or freaking something in it, but that's some people like using that stuff. Some people collect that stuff.
I save the boxes because I think to myself, when I move, I'm going to put this back into the box to protect it. And then what happened most recently is my basement floods. Ooh. And then I get and then I just throw it away because it gets all sopping wet and moldy.
Ugh.
I found a joke. Do you want to hear a joke?
Let's do it. Yeah.
I found a joke, and I've never heard of this guy. I actually had to look him up. His name's Mike Hammock, and this is a magnificently well-crafted joke that will get things moving into the content that we had to talk about.
All right.
Past, like, Mike, you used to be so liberal. What happened? And the only way I can describe it is like, imagine you and your friend really like camping, and you go camping all the time. But then one day your friend starts telling you they're really worried about Bigfoot. They think Bigfoot's going to get them specifically. And then they don't stop camping, but they start telling people that they're really brave for camping and that they're camping in protest of Bigfoot. And then you kind of pull your friend aside and you're like, hey, I don't think you need to worry about Bigfoot as much as you're worried about Bigfoot. I don't think it's actually mentally healthy for you to worry about this much about Bigfoot. But then they start saying, hey, that sounds like something a fucking Sasquatch would say. And you're like, fuck you, I'm not a Sasquatch. But then they start telling the other campers that you're making them feel unsafe and that they shouldn't let you in the Jeep Wrangler anymore. So you get really frustrated. You're like, fuck you, maybe I am a Sasquatch. And you start posting pro Bigfoot memes online, not because you believe them, but just you kind of want to get under their skin a little bit. You've also been listening to the things that Bigfoot's been saying on podcasts, and it doesn't all make sense, but some of it kind of tracks. Like maybe Smokey the Bear is lying to us about where the origins of forest fires and what's going on in Ukraine. So then all of your friends are starting to become really obnoxious, and all they talk about is Bigfoot. Meanwhile, you've been making small donations to the Sasquatch Party. Nothing huge, but send you a shirt that says "Make America Gigantopithecus again," and then at that point, you're wearing the shirt in a Buc-ee's, and one of your friends camping sees it, and you're like, "I'm never getting back in that fucking Jeep Cherokee again."
The only thing that joke is missing is Yeti.
Yeah.
That was what I was really pulling for Yeti to make an appearance in that joke, but everybody was laughing. Nobody was upset at the content of the joke.
Mm-hmm.
And it really feels like things are coming back to normal.
I would imagine that too, yeah.
I don't want to jump straight into USAID because it's been the sensation of the week.
Mm-hmm.
But there was some other news about, I mean, to the point, I feel like I've always asked myself for a long time on this podcast and in my circles of friends, like I think I even asked you last week or a couple of weeks ago, where does this come from? Where do we get all of this infection? The woke mind virus, like how does it keep getting perpetuated? Well, I think we found out with everything that we learned from USAID, and there will of course be more to come, and we're not going to get heavily into it. But earlier in the week, it was all about the tariffs. Trump told Mexico and Canada, I'm putting 25% tariffs on your exports, on anything that you're trying to import to the United States. And so I thought, okay, well, what does that mean? What kind of stuff? Because of course, the left immediately begins freaking out. So I asked Grok, what's the largest Canadian import to America? Mineral fuels and oils, with the top 10 rounding out to be number 2 vehicles, nuclear reactors, boilers and machinery, aluminum and articles thereof, electrical machinery and equipment, iron and steel, plastics and articles thereof, wood and articles of wood, precious metals and stones, and number 10, aircraft, spacecraft, and parts thereof. In other words, all things that we can and should be making in the United States. And this is the motivation. And you mentioned right before we started recording, the big news I think of today is that Japan just pledged upon their prime minister meeting with Donald Trump that they're going to be moving manufacturing to the United States.
Correct.
So let's get hyped.
Yeah, and I think to add to that, it was Nippon Steel trying to purchase a lot of the steel manufacturing here, which Trump doesn't like the idea of, because ultimately Nippon Steel would be the parent company, and all of it's basically everything going to Japan, Japan owned as opposed to US owned, right? So now the tune is different. He's like, I will invest in your steel via Nippon Steel, talking with the heads at Nippon Steel. And I think that's a great thing. Like in my job, I get steel from Nippon Steel for the big electrical equipment that we make. It's good stuff, and I think that investment also, like the CEO of SoftBank, when he promised 1 billion, he came like very Japanese guy, like, Mr. Trump, I say 1 billion, and then I come back with the investor, and we get the 5 billion. I do 5 times.
Oh, so good. That was
By
so
the way,
good.
audience, I'm half Japanese, so suck it if you think I'm being racist.
That's right.
That's how my family talks sometimes.
And I've lamented the death of being able to do accents on this show before. But I think it's another thing that's on its way out.
Yeah, I think it's on its way out. Yeah.
And it really feels like the left is, giving its final death rattles, especially with the coverage, the media coverage of the tariffs. So Trump says 25% on Canada, 25% on Mexico, and another 25% or 15% or something like that if you attempt to, I'm blanking on the word, but or enforce retaliatory
tariffs. Yep.
Tariffs. So really just like a massive flex and saying this is it. We're trade warring you. The left freaks out and goes, oh my God, like, especially when it came with the tariffs on Colombia. Oh no, coffee's gonna be more expensive. And now he's ruining our lives. We warned you, everybody. But never did it come up what the tariffs were for. We wanted border security. It was never discussed. I had to look it up. Why is Trump tariffing Mexico and Canada? Because he wants them to help us secure our mutual borders.
Mhm.
Stop the fentanyl from coming in. Stop the spies from pouring across the northern border. Stop the cartels from pouring across the southern border. So what happened? Mexico agreed to move 10,000 National Guard troops to our southern border. And Canada, in kind, agreed to move troops and security infrastructure to our northern border. So Trump said, okay, we're going to suspend the tariffs for 30 days. We'll see if you make good on our agreement, and we'll go from there. But then what does the media do? They go, oh, Trump is such a pussy. He just relaxed the tariffs for no reason. He basically just said that he was going to do it so that he could say he isn't going to do it. And Canada rolled Trump. Mexico rolled Trump.
Which is incorrect.
It's completely
So,
disingenuous.
Yeah, it's disingenuous, number one. What had happened, to my knowledge, was, during the Biden administration, these are things like, a lot of people on like the hard left, I'll make that distinction for myself. A lot of people on the hard left are the ones who said, well, that's what they said they were going to do. So all Trump is doing is saying that they're doing what they said they were going to do 4 years ago. The difference here is when during the Biden administration, no one checked up to see if the thing was being done. So you could say all you want, but you have to act in good faith. There was no good faith gesture in that case. So that's why Trump is using those tariffs as a means to it's a negotiating tactic, And here's the thing, I understand people are like, I'm not scared, but there is a genuine worry about, certain goods being tariffed. But then when you pull up, like, what are the main imports from Canada, or what are the main imports from Mexico? I mean, we had 4 years of Trump already where he went hard on China. And I understand why he did that is because we want to move a lot of that manufacturing back here in the US, because made in the USA used to be a gold standard. It was first made in USA gold standard, then made in Japan gold standard, and both Japan and USA kowtowed to China, and for the cheap labor and everything else. And say what you will, you're still buying Nikes. I'm still buying stuff made from China. It is what it is. But if we're able to curtail that,
good luck finding something that isn't made in China. Like,
yeah,
I challenge you, go into Walmart and find something that isn't made in China. It's all made in China. Which would be fine if they weren't such dicks all the time. But this post from Libs of TikTok, breaking, Canada has caved. They will pause their proposed tariffs for 30 days and will implement a $1.3 billion border plan, which includes appoint a fentanyl czar, reinforce the border with new choppers, technology, and personnel, send nearly 10,000 personnel to the border, list cartels as terrorists, launch a Canada-U.S. joint strike force to combat organized crime, fentanyl, and money laundering. This is what we wanted. This is why we proposed 25% tariffs on Canada.
Yeah, it's to stoke a fire. If you can't like say that you're gonna do something and not do it, that's not good business. And that's not good, like cross-country cross-country relations either. Like Mexico, like in my view, Canada, the United States, and Mexico, all three of us need to be best friends because we're part of the same continent, number one. Number two, we share a land border. There is there's nothing separating the two of us except for in Detroit, a bridge into Canada. And in Mexico, like an armed wall when you want to go to Tijuana or any of the other towns along the border. And, say what you will. I understand that, people come to this country illegally for a plethora of reasons. But, it's taking away from the people who are actually running away from civil wars where they're at, or Venezuela. Like that's an asylum case. Venezuela is straight, dude. I got a story about Venezuela from my old job, but I'll save that for another day. It's kind of fucked.
Well, and China also is, I don't want to say invaded, but they're kind of infected Mexico and Canada. They were running military drills in Canada, to expose their soldiers to those cold northern temperatures and kind of the environment of the Americas. And in Mexico, they're teaching the cartels how to build fentanyl labs and providing them with the precursors to create fentanyl. It's in every, I mean, it's really in all of our best interest, as you said, all of North America, to work together to create a safe environment for everybody, because that's, I mean, I just don't believe in the benevolence of the Chinese Communist Party.
Benevolence, that's a good word, because that's what they believe they are. They think like the Chinese, like the CCP is the church, it is the steeple, it is the state, it is all, you know. It's just crazy.
Well, and this is another interesting thing about the USAID, which I guess we'll I had one other video that I wanted to play, but maybe we'll save it for the end, just before we got into the USAID. I looked up because I didn't hear anybody talking about this. On the left, it's all, oh, can you believe Elon Musk has access to all of our data? Nobody elected Elon Musk. Oh, what? Like, nobody's talking about the rampant corruption and waste that was discovered with USAID. And
because they're trying to pull the wool over your eyes.
Oh yeah, it's totally shiny object. Look over here. Look over here. Don't look over here.
Jazz hands. And
I thought, well, why isn't anybody talking about what USAID was doing under Donald Trump's first administration? Did they just screw up? Like, could I give them notes? Like, here's what you should go after Donald Trump for. What was his USAID spending money on? And I learned two things. Well, I more than two. I learned a few things. One, Donald Trump was actually trying to reduce the waste in USAID and was being stopped by the left and the rhinos in his first administration. Second, many of the USAID programs began before his administration and were slated to continue through and after his administration. So there wasn't a lot that he was responsible for. The one thing that he was efforting through USAID was sort of a counter to the Belt and Road Initiative that China's been pushing around the country. He wanted to go into South Asia and the Asian Pacific and help develop nations and kind of get them on America's side before China could get them on their side. And I remember actually hearing a few stories of the Secretary of State at the time, I don't remember who it was, going and meeting with these countries, these, you know, smaller nations like Indonesia and
Malaysia, Bali,
and saying, this is a terrible deal that China is giving you. Here's what a reasonable deal looks like for these bridges and highways and stuff that, you know, these deep water ports that China says they're going to build for you. That was the extent of Donald Trump's USAID efforts. Now let's get into the good stuff. And I thought that I would let Senator John Kennedy set us up. Probably I think this is his entire speech that Elon Musk posted without music. Shout out Elon Musk. I hate it when videos that have great content have really annoying music behind them.
I want to try to put in perspective what many of my Democratic friends have been talking about today. They're very, very, very upset at President Trump. And they're very, very, very upset at Elon Musk. President Trump ran for president on a number of issues. One of the issues he ran on, he said it almost every day. He said, if you elect me president, I'm going to go through the entire budget and review all the spending, line by line. If I heard him say that once, I heard him say it 1,000 times.
Line by line.
And that's
I love this guy.
doing. He went out and appointed through an executive order Elon Musk, who some people like him, some don't, but he's not a dummy.
There it is. He was appointed by Donald Trump through executive order.
Appointed through executive order. Yep.
He has authority. Nothing that he's doing is illegal.
He's a very successful business person. He's got a top secret security clearance. President Trump issued an executive order, and he turned to Mr. Musk and he said, Mr. Musk, I want you to do for me what I said I was going to do in the election. I want you to go through all the spending, line by line. Now, let me ask you something, Mr. President. How are you going to review the spending without reviewing the spending? How are you going to audit the spending by an agency without auditing the agency? That's what I mean when I say common sense is illegal in Washington, D.C. That's what Mr. Musk is doing. He's put together a crackerjack team, and they're going through everybody's spending line by line, item by item. And my Democratic colleagues are very, very, very upset. And they've been very eloquent. They've talked about the process, and President Trump's executive order supposedly violates the Constitution. And they've accused Mr. Musk of having conflicts of interest. And so I've heard.
Yeah, they really care. They really care about the Constitution when it suits them.
Yep.
People say he's sitting over there with a notepad, copying down everybody's social security number, and he's going to go use it to make money. I mean, people in this town, not just my Democratic colleagues, they're really upset. They've never said anybody question their spending. But that's what Mr. Musk is doing. But you know, I've listened. This has been going on for a week. People have been screaming like they're part of a prison riot. Oh my God, look at what Musk is doing. He's looking at the spending. And I've listened to people talk about the process and debate whether it's constitutional and discuss how many lawyers can dance on the head of a pin. But you know what? I haven't heard one single person who's upset with President Trump or Mr. Musk talk about what he's found. They don't want to talk about the spending porn, the waste of taxpayer money that he's found. I mean, that's the point of all this. I tell you who is interested, the American people, the people in America who get up every day and go to work and obey the law and pay their taxes and try to educate their kids and try to do the right thing by their kids and try to save a little money for retirement, and have had to live through 20% inflation under President Biden. They understand what Musk is doing. They understand spending porn and wasting taxpayer money. Now, Mr. Musk started with the USAID. That handles a lot of foreign aid for America. American people are very generous. In our country, when you're homeless, we'll house you. When you're hungry, we'll feed you. In our country, when you're too poor to be sick, we'll pay for your doctor. And we send a lot of money overseas to help our world's neighbors. And the USAID is in charge in large part of that. But I'll tell you what Mr. Musk discovered. I find it fascinating. He discovered that the American taxpayers are giving money to Afghanistan. He found that we are giving money to Yemen. He found that we are giving money to Syria. I didn't know that. Some of our foreign aid is going to Yemen, Afghanistan, Syria. He found that the USAID has 10,000 people, employees. And every year they give away $40 billion. Mr. Musk also found.
This is one of the, it's one of the hard pills to swallow, I guess. 10,000 people lost their jobs this week. And I struggle to justify it because on one hand, I want to say, well, yeah, I mean, there's going to be, there's already a lot of jobs opening up now that all of those deportations have begun.
Yeah.
But that's probably not a six-figure. Like, I wonder if Grok could tell me quickly. I bet he could.
I'm sure Grok can.
What was the average salary of a USAID employee? And by the way, USAID, it's the United States Agency for International Development. Not really anything to do with aid. All right, so I almost nailed it. As of February 2025, sources indicate the average annual salary for USAID employees in the United States to be around $96,344. That's more than I make. That's pretty nice. That's a pretty nice job. There's and this kind of supports my lament, damn it.
And that's taxpayer money. That's
Well,
paying
it is
that.
taxpayer money. It is taxpayer money. And we probably shouldn't. I mean, and that's where I just kind of, you got to throw your hands up. You got to shrug your shoulders and go, are we trying to save? I mean, this is Donald Trump fixing a problem. It's not Donald Trump being a bully. We've been printing and spending money like it's going out of style. And we got to stop. This is why the billionaires have all joined up with Donald Trump. I've said it before. They knew that if they didn't do something, all of their money wasn't going to be worth dick. Because the left was just printing with reckless abandon, as if they didn't care what was going to happen or that they knew it was going to wreck the dollar and destroy the country. And that's kind of maybe what they were going for. But we have, I mean, they're a little bit more detailed spending breakdown. But I wanted to show you this sort of, this is the kind of stuff I love because it's really not super verified. It's this guy is a reliable source and this is what he said, which is what I love. I love it. This post from Aesthetica at ANC_aesthetics from Thread Reader app, but posted on Twitter February 4th. He writes, or she, or they.
No, it's just he or she.
Oh, that's right. By executive order.
By
that
executive
was
order.
Another juicy bit of news. Donald Trump, not only did he sign executive orders designating that there was federally only two genders, he also signed an executive order saying that only women can participate in women's sports, which of course brought on further outrage because we can't, and this was always my argument when we were talking about Leah Thomas and, you know, other trans women that were competing in women's sports. I think most trans women realize that they can't compete in women's sports because it's unfair.
Yeah.
Which makes me severely question the ethics and the morals of the trans women who think that it's okay to compete in women's sports.
I mean, have you ever seen the trans ladies who competed in MMA?
I didn't.
There's only two examples that I've seen. One was in the early 2000s. It was a former fella who went by the name Fallon Fox, and she broke a girl's orbital, like bad.
Oh, Jesus.
And like,
It should never be allowed.
yeah, and then, you know, she did end up getting beat by a former UFC fighter. Like, she wasn't in the UFC at that time because the UFC didn't have lady fights. But Ashley Evans Smith, I believe is her name, and she knocked her the fuck out. It was great.
Nice.
But then the extreme left are like, see, it's fair because da 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 da. But no, that she went in there with like reckless abandon. She was like, I'm gonna kill this bitch, basically.
What was the name of the? Oh, Fallon Fox.
Yeah, fall on, like Fallon spelt fall
There it
on,
is.
and then Fox.
Oh, that's the full. I want to see if I can find just the knockout because that first video was like 28 minutes. 28 minutes, 6 minutes. We might not be able to pull this off.
No, that's okay. Well, sorry, it just, you know, it came to my head.
No, I love it. I love the. I feel like it's pretty good. I feel like it's pretty good content to pull stuff up on the fly as it comes up. Is this maybe? I might have something. This might was it early in the fight? Do you know?
I can't remember.
All right, we'll move on. We'll move on. It's all right. I
Yeah.
have this. I wanted to read this thread from this Aesthetica guy. Talk to a friend who has connections within the Democratic Party, and he said the level of panic over Trump and Elon shutting down USAID is unlike anything he's ever seen. By following the money, DOGE has struck a killing blow to the heart of the Democrat deep state machine. Direct quote, "This is worse than 9/11 for Democrats. USAID is the primary vessel they use to achieve their political agenda. USAID is and always has been the primary source of funding for their influence peddling schemes and for their indirect sources of income." Another text, quote, "Based on the reactions from within the party, it seems to me that dismantling USAID is Trump's biggest political victory to date. It was his enemy's golden goose," end quote. Same source who told me during the campaign, well before it was made public, that Kamala's internal polling had her behind Trump, so his information is good. That's his justification for the credibility of this source. Take it with a grain of salt. Another important addition. He said initial plans by the Democrats is to have their people at USAID hide the partisan funding under, quote, unimpeachable initiatives. They will push back really hard on certain line items that on their face look like reasonable USAID expenditures and hide their political spending under these programs. Looks like the whole thing needs to be thrown out to avoid this from happening, he adds Elon Musk. Well, this is what happens. I mean, 10,000 people lost their jobs because of poor leadership.
Mhm.
That's what it is.
Yeah, I mean, I heard earlier today while I was driving, I was listening to some podcasters and some other YouTubers and stuff like that. Like Politico was actually through USAID and some subsidiaries was supposed to be receiving $88 million, and it's all to write things that are pro-Democrat and anti-Trump.
And that was really crazy because
Because Politico, I saw Politico as like dead middle.
Well, and they also had those. They had a fact-checking. Like not like they were a parent company for a fact-checking organization. And what was really interesting was they discovered that funding, and not only did it come from USAID. Actually, I'll save Nancy Mace for a little bit later, because this is another thing on the topic of Politico getting money from USAID. They were also getting it from the FDA, which was broken down by one of my favorite content creators, the older millennial.
Politico has been receiving funds from the federal government.
Jeff, it's actually way worse than you think. Because not only were we giving them that $8.1 million in direct payments, DOGE just revealed that just the FDA was paying them $517,855 for 37 subscriptions. In case you were unaware, a subscription to Politico is $200. What we should have paid for 37 subscriptions is $7,400. However, the FDA managed to pay $510,000 more than these subscriptions should have cost. Not to mention, the taxpayer should not be paying for people to be subscribed to a left-wing news organization. What do you want to bet that when DOGE starts looking into these other three-letter organizations, we find the same kind of funny math? This is money laundering, plain and simple. There is no other reason why subscriptions that should have cost $7,400 magically cost $510K extra.
It's 100% money laundering. And this
Yeah,
is
it's
exactly
book
what
cooking.
happens with the condoms going to Gaza. You remember hearing that story?
Yep.
$1 billion, or I don't remember. It was something like 4 billion condoms going to Gaza that had a population of who knows what.
Hey, but if you're gonna, surprise grape
million.
soda someone, you got to be protected. You gotta keep it wrapped up. If you're gonna have some grape soda,
Yeah. I'm something about goats. I don't know.
yeah.
I probably shouldn't go there.
Goat's a
Oh.
good protein. I love goat curry goat, Jamaican dish.
Should we hear
By the way, I found the knockouts 28 seconds.
Oh yeah, I heard you Discord it to me.
Mm-hmm.
Let me. Oh, you put it in the show
Yeah,
notes?
no, I put it in the chat because I don't think I have access to show notes. I DM'd it to you.
Beautiful. There it is. Oh, we're doing it. We're doing it. Come on, cooperate. Boom, boom. Here we go.
Erica. Oh, wow. Erica Newsom goes for the takedown. Fallon Fox's escape. They're both back up on their feet.
Good throws and reversals by both fighters.
These girls are getting right into it.
It's not a great angle, so if you're only on audio, you're not missing much. But yeah, that was decisive, and she was bigger.
Mm-hmm.
Than...
She still had to cut weight. So for those of you who don't know MMA or mixed martial arts or fighting, there's a contracted weight that they have to fight at. I believe the weight was 145 pounds. So even though you weigh in the day before your fight at 145 pounds, that doesn't mean you are 145 pounds on the day of the fight.
Right.
Like she had to have been like 160 if my visual body math, because little fun fact, my cousin was an amateur MMA fighter, so I helped him get prepared and like cut weight, so I understand like what you can lose and what you can gain back, and salt is great. Anyways, yeah, so she had to have been like about 160, and I think my issue is like if you look at both of them, like the whole fight, it's coming back to me because I remember watching it and like being really disgusted with my dad. They both looked like they were flailing around. So it's like, no offense to the woman who got knocked out, but she was very early in her career. I think she was only like 2-1, maybe 1-1.
Oh, wow.
And then Fallon, I think that might have been like her third. So like, as far as like amount of fights, they were about even. So it wasn't the most technical looking, right? But the whole thing is if you're a man, even if you're not the most technical, if you're the same weight and you just put a set of tits on you, you're still going to have that inner strength, that bone density, that muscle mass, the testosterone. It's just not fair. Like, if you're talking about disc golf, go for it. Yeah. That's awesome. Anything that is like non-physical in nature, shooting in the Olympics. Like, the Turkish guy, remember everyone, the Turkish sensation, like, my hands in my pockets, I just woke up, I'm going to shoot this air pistol.
Yeah, I love it.
That's cool. But when you're talking about like judo, wrestling, karate, even fencing, like anything where there's contact made, I don't, it's unfair.
One thing that as this whole cultural conversation was developing, one thing that I found to be really interesting was chess. Men and women don't play chess together at a high level.
Mm-hmm.
And that's, kind of offensive. Right. Oh, before I forget, speaking of men and women, I am going to be appearing on a podcast tomorrow morning. I don't think it's streaming live. It's just one of the like I can't believe I waited so long to really heavily get involved in the podcast community. I met you. I met several other people that were interested in talking and doing interviews and coming on the show and having me on their show. And this was one of the people that contacted me. I'm going on a podcast called We Don't Deserve Men that discusses sort of the cultural relationship between men and women in 2025. And it's again, it's called We Don't Deserve Men. It's on Spotify. It's on Apple Podcasts. The host name is Kayla Yoder, and that will be coming out in the next week. So please check it out, look it up, leave a nice rate and review if you like it. And yeah, that should be fun. I'm sure we'll be getting into some of these topics. I'm a little bit nervous because I've never been a guest on a podcast before, and I'm afraid that I'm gonna take over and turn it into the earthvox podcast with this poor woman who just wants to discuss cultural relationships between men and women.
Just make sure not to mansplain.
I know it's gonna be hard. I'm excited. Because one, I don't really have to prepare, even though I do have a handful of questions that just came up for the sake of keeping the conversation going. I'm a little bit nervous in that respect because I want it to be good. You know what I mean? And like,
Yeah.
tempo and forward momentum are very important when you're doing a podcast. But speaking of women, I guess we'll have really pathetic segue into Nancy Mace just being a boss bitch. And I love hearing, I love seeing the left that has been so hubristic and arrogant and above the law, like finally in a position to eat some crow and experience a little humility.
USAID awarded $2 million to strengthen trans-led organizations to deliver gender-affirming healthcare in Guatemala. So to each of you this morning, does this advance the interests of American citizens paying for trannies in Guatemala to the tune of $2 million? Yes or no, Governor?
I have no position.
Of course you don't. Okay, USAID awarded over $750,000 to fund alleviating loneliness among migrant garment workers in India. Does this advance America's interests, Governor? No.
No. I have no position.
USAID awarded $1.5 million for providing a gender-sensitive response to migration at the Venezuelan border. Does this advance America's interests, Governor? No.
No. I have no position.
Does this advance the
I bet you have a favorite position, though.
$4.3 million on October 1st, 2023 to a group to fund comprehensive health services for men having sex with other men in South Africa? Does this advance the interests of American citizens, Governor? No.
No. I have no position.
I bet you don't. Okay. USAID awarded $1.5 million to advance diversity, equity, and inclusion in Serbia's workplaces and business communities by promoting economic empowerment and opportunity for LGBTQI plus people in Serbia. Does this advance America's interests? No.
No. Nope.
You have no idea, right? Okay.
Damn.
You know what pisses me off about that clip? The smirk on motherfucker's face.
Mm-hmm.
You know, all these motherfuckers in politics, I don't think they've ever been had the shit beat out of them in their life. And I think if you hold a position of power, you have to have been knocked to the fucking ground.
Well,
I got really angry there.
It's the everybody gets a trophy. It's the everybody gets a trophy culture. Like nobody can have their hurt feelings. Nobody gets cut from the team. Nobody has to work for whatever they've gotten. And I swear all of these politicians were all handpicked because they're betas, because they have no position, because they've been assured. Like, what are these people that are saying that are being fired by Trump and then saying, I'm not going to leave. And then they have to be escorted out of the building.
I'm telling you, they've never had the shit kicked out of them in their life.
No, never.
Ever. Never been in a street fight. Look, and I'm not saying like y'all got to be violent, you know, because then that goes into the trope of like, oh, well, all men are violent. But when I say having the shit beat out of you, I mean like facing real adversity, hitting that real rock bottom, hitting that like, oh, my credit score is like 400, or oh, my like, you know, do I eat ramen today, or do I, you know, just save that $1 so I could put some gas in my car? None of these motherfuckers ever experienced that shit.
Well, and what's her name? Damn it. This congresswoman, this black congresswoman.
Was it the Iman whatever? Is it one of the the squad?
Not the squad. I wonder if I could find it on Elon Musk's page. She went on, you know, whatever tirade she was on, discussing how she or basically being a racist, telling Elon Musk that he's privileged and he doesn't understand what she's been through, and she's gonna tell him a thing or two about his white privilege while she went to a $20,000 a year private school. And it tells a bigger, it's a small slice of the bigger narrative, which is that the left is just making shit up like crazy. Go on Reddit. It's ridiculous. It's nauseating. They're literally making stuff up completely from nothing, just making it up. Elon Musk is doing this and that and the other thing, and it's illegal, and he's got access to all of our data, and oh no, what are we gonna do? Bro, every time you try to take out a loan, everybody's getting they're all getting all your information. You don't know who works at that bank. You don't know who has access to that information.
Yeah. I mean, it's so bad that when you like purchase a new car, like when we got our new car last year, like they had to sign, like, would you like us to sell your information? At least they gave us the option here in Cali, or that dealer, and we're like, no. Like, don't, we just want to buy our truck and go. It's a beautiful truck, by the way. It's the best truck. Yeah, if you want to see the truck, the Instagram is right here. Same as my handle.
It's one of the greatest, like Donald Trump being the president is one of the greatest things for just the history of the world. And the Donald Trump impression, and Shane Gillis doing the Donald Trump impression, and just Donald Trump's attitude. I don't know if you saw the clip where the Afghani reporter is he's asking him a question, and he says, I can't understand a word that you said. But you have a beautiful accent. I wish you the best. Like, oh my God. Like he was like, I'm sorry. You don't speak well enough. I wish you the best. Next question. Like, oh my God. Who does that?
I still remember when he was talking to that CNN reporter. He's like, no, it's her turn. Don't be rude. Don't be rude.
Yeah. Oh man. And that guy, Jim Acosta, right?
Jim Acosta. That's who it was. Yeah.
He's now probably done at CNN. The MSM is
the MSDNC.
They're flailing. What is I had something. I had a note. Yes. Oh yeah, Pete Hegseth. This was one of the first stories of the week. This was posted on January 31st. Pete Hegseth kicked all of the, he evicted the New York Times, NPR, NBC, and Politico from their Pentagon offices to make room for One America News, the New York Post, Breitbart News, and HuffPost, which I'm not really a fan of HuffPost, but I'm even less a fan of having an echo chamber where we don't share any ideas and we can't have like friendly disagreements. Like I think you were telling me about the interview with between Piers Morgan and
Tucker Carlson.
Buddy, that is a master class on polite discourse and debate. And they were like teasing each other. And it's one of my favorite parts about listening to the Tucker Carlson show, podcast, whatever you want to call it, is a lot of times when he's interviewing his guests, they talk about how they went to dinner last night and they hung out and they, stayed at the same hotel, or he put them up in his guest house. And then they get like, I think that was the most adversarial Tucker Carlson interview that I've heard, but it was so friendly and polite, but also like spirited and intellectual. Like everybody should go listen to that, because that should be the future of politics, right?
That's Discourse 101.
We can all agree that we want good things for the country. We all like, I want everybody to be fed and clothed and sheltered as much or as little as they want to be. And I feel like we should all try to provide that. And I feel like that's how USAID started. It was supposed to be like, we're the richest country or one of the richest countries in the world. Let's spread it around. That's what we should do. That's what good people should do.
Let's
what
create
CEOs
opportunity.
CEOs should take modest salaries and live large, be rich, be comfortable, have big yachts, have a vacation home, but pay your employees so that they can so that they can get married and have children, and one parent can stay home and raise the kids and take care of the house, instead of this totally fucked culture where both parents have to work, the state raises the child, and now we're in this predicament that we see ourselves in.
Yeah.
Where nobody's paying attention. Nobody's paying attention to anything that's going on. We're completely absorbed in our video games and our pornography and our NFL and NBA, and we have no idea what's going on. We're wondering what's happening with inflation. Why is everything so expensive? Why can't I afford anything? Why am I living paycheck to paycheck? Why can't I buy a home? And you realize, oh, it's because these government agencies have been laundering our tax money back to themselves, back to their re-election campaigns. And this is why one thing that I really want to know, to wrap up this discussion on USAID before we move on into the last couple of stories I have, which are really interesting. What did the Republicans and Mike Johnson, the Republican Speaker of the House in particular, know about what was happening with USAID? And why didn't they do anything about it? Because that question is still largely unanswered. I mean, I have some hypotheses, like,
because
maybe
they want to keep some of those people on that side too, like the Republican side, they want to keep their power just as much as the Democrats do.
Absolutely.
That's the answer. So it's like, I scratch your back, you scratch mine, right? But the issue is, it's like, I hate to be so vulgar, but it's like, some of the people on the Republican side are probably doing the back scratching, and the people on the Democrat sides are expecting a blowjob.
Mm-hmm.
There's an imbalance there.
That describes it perfectly.
There's an imbalance.
That's always, like, the Democrats are always like cutthroat. Like, I don't care, and that's why, like, I would have no trouble believing that Mike Johnson had no idea what the USAID was being spent on.
Because you turn a blind eye to it. That's the part of the back scratching.
And that could also be true. I would have no problem believing that either. And that's why Donald Trump had to executive order Elon Musk into DOGE to expose all of it.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's like the
people are mad. He's running the country like a company. You have to trim the fat. And he said he was going to drain the swamp in his first go. He couldn't quite do it because there were a couple of roadblocks, but I genuinely believe that, like, the everyday American citizen that doesn't live on Twitter, that touches grass, that, doesn't necessarily have to have a blue collar job. I mean, for F's sake, I mean, I'm like a project manager and I have the whitest of white collar jobs that you can have, but I still have that mentality of, like, the shits, like, just the shit places that I used to work. And I think if you ask that everyday American, like, do these, just spending our tax dollars on these programs, such as donating to Politico or condoms to Gaza, or even, like, there was a school in Pakistan that the USAID was supposed to build that was supposed to be weatherproof, whatever else. It's not even complete. They started, there's a frame, there's no window. There's, like, the tables are on the outside. It's like, if you're going to do something, do it to the fullest, but y'all ain't even doing that. So it's just a waste of money. And we're sick of it.
Wasting more and more money. $2 million for sex changes and LGBT activism in Guatemala. $6 million to fund tourism in Egypt. Hundreds of thousands of dollars for a nonprofit linked to designated terrorist organizations. And this is one example, probably the best example, at least the easiest to understand. The way that they were hiding this malfeasance in the example of gain of function research in Wuhan. USAID gave money to UC Davis, the college, which then gave it to EcoHealth Alliance, run by Peter Daszak, one of Fauci's minions, which was then funneled to the Wuhan Institute of Virology, or whatever Wuhan lab was getting the money at the time. And that's why I think Mike Johnson might not necessarily have to be on the hook for this stuff. But that's enough of that. I'm sure you've had an earful.
No, yeah, it's that's all it's been on the YouTubes this week and on the on X, and like just that bit of news about the Japanese Prime Minister. My ethnic roots are in Japan, and we did some Japan did some messed up ish to Hawaii, so to make up for that,
Yeah,
we're gonna atone for the sins, and also the PlayStation and Nintendo. You're welcome, world.
and Toyota and Nissan,
Isuzu,
and anime. I don't love a lot of anime, but there's some really good anime.
Yeah, I could do a whole I don't. There's only a handful of anime that I watch, and it's not Naruto or One Piece. Dragon Ball, that's like every dude. Every dude loves a Dragon Ball.
I really liked Attack on Titan.
You and my mom would get along.
I really liked Attack on Titan, and then
my mom
that
watched
got
that
me
religiously.
Into, I watched Attack on Titan, and then I started watching the Castlevania anime that came out on Netflix,
Mhm.
but I didn't watch it through all the way. For whatever reason, I don't remember. I probably started watching something else. But RFK Jr. made it through the committee approval process, and will be he got voted out or in, I guess, 14-13. So he will go to the full Senate vote at a time TBD. That's good news.
Maha.
We still got to find out about Tulsi Gabbard and was there anyone else? Hegseth's in. Pam Bondi got approved as AG.
What about Patel?
That's
Patel's
the
the other one. Yeah.
That's the other one that I'm thinking of. And
Yeah.
I think John Fetterman, the senator, the hoodie senator, such a gross gimmick. I've always wondered, or I should say I've been wondering lately, like, what is it about these guys? Like Fetterman, he wears basketball shorts and a hoodie when everybody else around him is wearing a suit. And then Zelensky, the president of Ukraine.
He's always in like a Hollister long sleeve.
The same thing.
Yeah.
Like cargo short, or cargo pants and a hoodie or something like that. Like what is that? What?
It's formal tactical.
I guess.
You got tactical pants and like a formal sweater, because like you can't, if you're wearing the blazer, the full suit, like you can't. There's no mobility. You know when you got that fittest suit, you can't. Your arms only go like up here. I know, like when I go to weddings, I got the suit from when I got married. I use that, but my arms only go up to here because my shoulders got bigger since the wedding, since I've been lifting. So it's like it's not like the John Wick where it's like Kevlar and tactical and like,
Yeah, you never know when you're gonna have to dive for cover, I guess.
Yeah.
Okay, wrapping up here. Though they think they found out who Jack the Ripper is. That was pretty interesting. I just happened across that in my scrolling of headlines from GBN, Great Britain News. Jack the Ripper's identity confirmed, claims researcher who found 100% DNA match with suspect. And spoiler alert, it's not cool or sexy. It's a Polish barber. What was his name? Aaron? Was it Aaron? I'm scanning. He can't be prosecuted because he's dead. Aaron Kosminski, Polish barber, was Jack the Ripper, the guy that horrified London for many years and killed many prostitutes, and then was played by the same guy that played Bilbo in The Lord of the Rings, right? In that movie, From Hell with Heather Graham, which I really enjoyed and actually watched with my wife on our first date.
Oh,
So
wow.
write that down. There'll be a quiz later. Terrible joke. Now, this was my favorite. I mean, I didn't really mean to save this for last, but it was the last thing that really grabbed my attention over the week. Everybody's been complaining about the price of eggs, and very disingenuously, at least from the left, blaming Donald Trump, who's been in power for 15 days now.
Yeah.
20 days, that the price of eggs is still real expensive. We told you guys Donald Trump wasn't going to fix it. The price of eggs is still really, but now bear witness. Arrested USDA inspector Phyllis Fong, a 22-year deep state operative. This is from @TJ Cashin, Timothy Cashin. So editorialized, of course, is one of the key players behind the artificial inflation of poultry and egg prices in the US. She ordered the culling of millions of healthy birds using the fake excuse of what? Mutating bird flu. But here's the truth. There was no pandemic, according to Tim Cashin. Fong personally ordered mass bird exterminations in 2024, targeting farms in Colorado, Ohio, Arizona, Louisiana, and Nebraska. One case in Louisiana set the stage. A man who did not work on a poultry farm was allegedly diagnosed with H5N1 after, quote, finding dead birds in his yard. The CDC then invented a panic story, claiming 66 people were infected. Sources say that number is entirely fabricated. Before the media even blasted this fake outbreak, Fong and Biden's corrupt FDA sent teams of inspectors in full hazmat suits to Nebraska, ordering the instant killing of 600,000 birds.
Jesus.
The farm owner, who recently tested his flock and found zero signs of bird flu, refused. But it didn't matter. Fong had already signed off on the order, threatening him with $4 billion in fines and prison time if he didn't comply. She thought she was untouchable. When Trump began cleansing the deep state in January, she refused to leave, publicly claiming Trump had no authority over federal watchdogs. The next day, karma struck. Security forced her out, delivering her straight to JAG investigators. Now you know why the price of eggs has shot through the roof. And I remember hearing the story. I remember hearing about all of the birds that had to be killed because of the bird flu.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know it was this lady. I didn't know she was the one that did it. And there's a corresponding article in the show notes from Reuters. I'll show you here if you're watching the video. Maybe. Oh, I made you big somehow. Feast your eyes.
Enjoy the sight.
There it is from Reuters. The headline exclusive. USDA Inspector General escorted out of her office after defying White House. That's her, Phyllis Fong. And this is the kind of stuff I told my wife, and I've brought it up before, but I never told you. When Biden allegedly fraudulently won the 2020 election, I told my wife, basically, the enemies of the United States are now in control of the country. And I don't know what's going to happen. And now we see. We see what they were spending all of our money on. We see what they were doing to our farmers. We see what they were doing with terrorist organizations and NGOs. One sensational thing that I was going to pull up, but I forgot, was also from the older millennial that we watched earlier. I don't want to snipe all his content. There was a Lutheran church organization, some kind of NGO, that received tens of millions of dollars in a variety of different line items in this document that he was showing. that was facilitating all of the illegal immigration into the country. USAID was funding NGOs who were funneling illegal immigrants into the country.
So they're basically paying for coyotes.
Yeah.
Jesus.
This is what this government has been up to. And now we're finding out. We're exposing it. And we're seeing that it's all happening, that it's all going down. And they're screaming. They're screaming about how terrible it is. What in the world?
Yep. It's the party of peace and tolerance and love and the working everyday man. Yeah, right.
And theft and pedophilia and war and corruption and evil. And I really feel like every time I hear somebody say these people are evil, like Tim Pool all the time, evil, these people are evil. I mean, is he wrong?
No, I don't think so. I mean, Gabbard, she was on that side and she said, I don't like this. And, she went over to the other side.
She's a true patriot.
Mm-hmm.
And this is what we need from the left. This is what we need from Democrats. We need them to be patriots.
Mm-hmm. And RFK, he used to be a Democrat too.
RFK used to be a Democrat. Elon Musk used to be a Democrat. Donald Trump used
famously
to be a Democrat. All right, that's it for us. Thank you for enjoying this podcast with us. Please follow the show on your favorite podcast platform. Follow me on X at earthvox. Send your voicemails if you'd like to 701-787-1121. If I like what you have to say, I may play it on the show. Send an email to the real earthvox at protonmail.com and get into our Discord server. Check out the show notes. MrKagiwada, would you like to shout anything out before we go?
Yeah, I'm on Instagram at MrKagiwada, on X at the Kagiwadas. And yeah, check out my YouTube. It's on at MrKagiwada, where we don't talk about politics or any of that stuff at all. It's mostly skateboarding and Street Fighter. So if you're looking for a little bit of a break from all of the mud and the sludge, come in, watch me rage quit against ostensibly someone who's probably 18.
Love it. Love it. Check out We Don't Deserve Men. I'll be appearing with them tomorrow. And we'll see you again next week.
Have a good one, y'all. Have a happy weekend. Be good to each other.